On the night of April 26, 1986, the city of Pripyat, in what was then the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, was fast asleep. The streets were quiet, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. In apartments, refrigerators hummed, and families rested, completely unaware that this ordinary night would become a defining moment in history. Pripyat was a model city, built specifically for the workers of the nearby Chernobyl nuclear power plant. It was young, modern, and tidy, with wide boulevards and pristine playgrounds for its many children. People here had no reason to believe anything was wrong. They had no idea that in just a few short hours, their world would be torn apart forever. Over at reactor number 4, preparations were underway for a routine technical test. On paper, it was simple and wasn't considered dangerous. In fact, it had been performed before without any major issues, creating a false sense of security among the plant's operators. The goal was to see if the turbine, spinning from its own inertia after a reactor shutdown, could generate enough power to run the essential safety systems for the few crucial seconds before backup generators kicked in. But this time, things would be different. In just a few minutes, a series of fateful decisions would alter the lives of thousands and reshape the future of nuclear energy worldwide. The test began, but almost immediately, problems started to emerge. The reactor's power output suddenly plummeted far below the safe level required for the experiment. This was a clear signal that something was wrong, a moment where protocol demanded they halt the test. But instead of stopping, the operators made a critical error. They decided to manually override the safety systems and try to adjust the situation to get the power back up. This was the first major violation of procedure, the first step down a catastrophic path. Each subsequent decision they made, driven by a desire to complete the test at all costs, only compounded the risk, pushing the reactor closer and closer to the brink. Inside the control room, a subtle chaos was building. Monitors flickered erratically, and numbers on the control panels changed every second, painting a picture of a reactor becoming increasingly unstable. But amidst the blinking lights and rising alarms, no one seemed to grasp the full, horrifying danger of the situation. They were experienced engineers, but they were operating under immense pressure and perhaps a misplaced confidence in their ability to control the machine. The following minutes would prove just how wrong they were. The clock was ticking, and with every second, the window to prevent a disaster was closing. At precisely 1:23 and 4 seconds in the morning, an operator made a last-ditch effort to regain control. He pressed the AZ-5 button, the emergency shutdown switch. This was the ultimate failsafe, designed to immediately insert all control rods into the reactor core and stop the nuclear reaction cold. It was their last line of defense. But tragically, due to a fatal design flaw in the RBMK-type reactor, a flaw that officials had been warned about, the button did the exact opposite. As the graphite-tipped control rods entered the core, they momentarily displaced the water coolant, causing a massive, uncontrollable power surge. In mere fractions of a second, the reactor's power level spiked to over 100 times its normal operational output. The pressure inside the core became immense, far beyond anything the structure was built to withstand. At 1:23 and 40 seconds, just 36 seconds after the shutdown button was pressed, two massive explosions rocked the facility. The first was a steam explosion, followed moments later by a second, more powerful blast that completely obliterated Reactor 4. The 1,000-ton concrete lid was blown off, and the reactor core was exposed to the open air. A firestorm of radioactive material immediately began spewing into the night sky, marking the start of the worst nuclear disaster in human history. In the immediate aftermath, the plant's management failed to comprehend the scale of what had just happened. They reported to Moscow that there had been an accident, but that the reactor itself was intact and the situation was under control. This was a catastrophic misjudgment. The on-site radiation monitors either showed readings that were off the charts making them seem faulty, or had been destroyed in the blast, giving deceptively low readings. The first firefighters who rushed to the scene had no idea they were walking into the heart of an exposed nuclear reactor. They bravely battled the fires, thinking it was a standard industrial blaze. They fought the flames on the roof, kicking away pieces of burning graphite with their boots, unaware that they were being exposed to lethal doses of radiation. Many of these heroic first responders would die painful deaths from acute radiation sickness within weeks. For days, the world remained blissfully unaware of the catastrophe unfolding in the Soviet Union. Information was suppressed, controlled, and distorted. But warnings about the RBMK reactor had existed for years. Courageous engineers and scientists had repeatedly pointed out its dangerous design features, particularly the flaw in the emergency shutdown system. These reports were either ignored by a rigid bureaucracy, dismissed as alarmist, or buried deep within classified archives. The Soviet system did not encourage speaking up about risks. Raising concerns was often seen as a threat to one's career. This systemic culture of silence and ignoring clear signals was a key factor that paved the way for the disaster. The true moment zero of this story wasn't the explosion itself. The real moment zero happened in the minutes before, inside that control room. It was the moment when an operator looked at the instrument panel, saw the dangerously low power levels, and made the conscious choice to continue the test instead of aborting it. That single decision, that one ignored warning sign, set off the unstoppable chain reaction of events. The evacuation of Pripyat only began a full 36 hours after the explosion. Residents were told it was a temporary measure, that they should pack for just 3 days. They left their homes, their pets, and most of their belongings behind, expecting to return soon. Most of them never would. The radioactive cloud, invisible and deadly, had already begun its silent journey. It drifted across Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia before continuing on to contaminate vast areas of Poland and Scandinavia. In fact, it was a nuclear plant in Sweden that first detected the abnormally high levels of radiation in the atmosphere, forcing the Soviet Union to finally admit that a major accident had occurred. The visible consequences were devastating. An entire city, Pripyat, became a ghost town, frozen in time. Vast swaths of agricultural land and forests were rendered uninhabitable for centuries. But the invisible effects on human health and the environment are still being measured and understood today. Chernobyl wasn't just an industrial accident. It was the start of a global technological catastrophe, a wound on the planet that has yet to heal. In the wake of the disaster, a massive cleanup operation began. Over 600,000 people, known as liquidators, were sent into the exclusion zone. They were soldiers, engineers, miners, scientists, and volunteers. They worked under extreme conditions, often with incomplete information and inadequate protection against the radiation. Their mission was to contain a disaster that was already out of control. They performed incredible feats of bravery, manually clearing radioactive debris from the reactor roof, building the hastily constructed sarcophagus to entomb the destroyed reactor, and burying contaminated vehicles and equipment in massive pits. Every step they took, every piece of debris they moved, came at a terrible cost to their own health and, for many, their lives. The Chernobyl disaster changed the world forever. It shattered public trust in nuclear energy and forced a global reevaluation of safety standards. It also exposed the deep-seated flaws of the Soviet system, the secrecy, the bureaucracy, and the disconnect between the authorities and the people. The disaster is widely considered one of the catalysts that hastened the collapse of the Soviet Union. It was a brutal demonstration of the cost of human error, arrogance, and a system that punishes truth-tellers. The world saw, in horrifying detail, how fragile our most advanced technologies can be when checks, balances, and transparency are absent. And it all started with a single wrong decision, made in a control room late one night. That moment, when operators saw the warning signs and chose to push forward anyway, was the point of no return. That one ignored action triggered a cascade of failures that destroyed a reactor, poisoned a continent, and altered the course of history. The lesson of that night remains profoundly relevant decades later. The world only learned the full truth about Chernobyl days after the fact, as fear and panic spread alongside the radioactive fallout. The medical consequences for millions of people who were exposed to radiation began to unfold, a slow-motion tragedy that continues to this day. The response from many governments was slow and insufficient. Chernobyl proved that technology without responsible oversight can be unimaginably deadly. The financial cost of the cleanup and the long-term economic losses have been estimated in the hundreds of billions of dollars, a price that can never truly cover the loss of life, health, and home. And it all goes back to that one choice: the decision not to stop the test. Even today, Chernobyl stands as a powerful and chilling reminder of the price of negligence. The abandoned city of Pripyat, the radioactive traces still present in the soil and water, and the lasting impact on human health are all testaments to what began on that fateful April night. One warning ignored, one action carried out against all better judgment. History reminds us that a single moment, a single decision, can shape the future for generations. It teaches us that silence, fear, and bureaucracy can carry a cost far greater than any amount of money. One ignored warning can, and did, become a catastrophe on a global scale. And that is why the story of Chernobyl is a lesson we must never forget. Thank you for watching. If you found this story important, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the moments that changed our world.